Chapter 234. But this was exactly the kind of look that wanted to strangle the other person, but had a hint of indulgence and gentleness in his eyes. However, it was recorded by the camera. Apart from the audience present, there were also those Qin Mo fans watching the live broadcast. They were completely blown away. When had Almighty Qin ever smiled like this? So charming. The network that hadn't been paralyzed at any time just now had reached its limit. As Qin Mo curled his thin lips, he raised his hand, grabbed the young man's collar, and pulled him in front of him. The screen blurred. In an instant, the comment section exploded. What's going on? It seems like the platform crashed. F***CK. Where's the technology? Where's the platform technology? I want to see the follow-up. What was my almighty Qin doing just now? What was he doing? What was he doing? Only the people who saw it at the scene knew. He grabbed the young man with one hand, and his smile was cold and seductive. I'll teach you a lesson later. Fujiu was innocent. Why did she have to be taught a lesson? This kind of conversation was really, so loving. There were many fujoshis at the scene, especially the girls who liked to play games, and they liked to match their almighty with them. But they had never thought of matching almighty Qin with anyone. After all, a person like almighty Qin was like a flower on a high mountain, to be watched from afar and not to be messed with. The most important thing was that almighty Qin was straight. The kind of straight as a pencil. No one dared to match him with anyone, for fear of being thrown into the cold palace by him. Even the esports reports only dared to say which team's female player almighty Qin had met, and they didn't dare to directly say that they were friends, etc. Not to mention that there was a guy next to almighty Qin. But now, seeing the young man standing in front of him, and almighty Qin not forgetting to tidy his hair while teaching him a lesson, all the fujoshis' hearts popped out from seeing this scene. They were so compatible. They were a perfect match. Just when the excited audience took out their mobile phones to take pictures of the two of them, Chen Xiaobei's expression changed. The platform was still flooding with comments. Rolling around, acting cute. Hurry up and give us a follow-up. How to give them a follow-up. The technical staff was about to cry. The media, on the other hand, was overjoyed. They kept snapping photos from all angles and poses. Every single photo could be used as a page and could even be privately circulated. Am I the only one who noticed that my big spade calls almighty Qin brother Mo? In other words, the two of them have already met before? That's possible. That's why almighty Qin came down just now, because he couldn't stand my big spade being bullied. No, you can't think like that. Almighty Qin is straight. Almighty Qin is still straight. The fangirls were going crazy. They also found it strange that watching the interaction between the two equally handsome people was even more heartwarming than when they themselves were in a relationship. What was going on? He Honghua was also wondering what was going on. She asked in a daze, Xiaodong, when did Zhou meet CEO Qin? Chen Xiaodong's tiger back trembled. Madam, don't worry. Young master is absolutely straight. He doesn't have any thoughts about young master Qin. He doesn't play games to chase after young master Qin. Young master's action just now wasn't a declaration of love. It was just a normal interaction. Yes, a very normal interaction. He Honghua didn't understand, and her face was full of confusion. The fangirls standing at the side suddenly realized. So my big spade is chasing after young master Qin. Chapter 235. But even without Chen Xiaodong's words, the atmosphere between Qin Mo and Fujiu was a little too intimate. It was rare to see Qin Mo treat someone like this. No one knew what the young man said to him with a smile. Almighty Qin reached out and pulled the zipper of the young man's uniform up to his head, taking care of the young man as if he was taking care of his younger brother. Fujiu looked down at almighty Qin's hand, with a lollipop in her mouth. Her clean side profile was so handsome that it made people want to scream. Two equally outstanding people standing together was really pleasing to the eye, not to mention their actions were so ambiguous. Many fangirls already knew that from today onwards, they would have another pair of CP fans, and they couldn't be happier. But those who played esports knew that it was the mutual admiration between two masters. No one could predict the future of the young man. Although the Supreme Alliance was the king of Jiang City, they hadn't won the national championship for 3 years in a row. Although Almighty Qin was known as the most valuable esports player, he was a single player. The final victory of the national competition was determined by team combat. Moreover, the level of the professional teams in the country wasn't like today's, where they could be destroyed by one person. But no one could deny that the Supreme Alliance, which had Almighty Qin and had absorbed Spade Z, was very strong. No one knew. Everything in the future was unknown. When Fu Jiao led the He family army and stood in the Supreme Alliance, Feng Shang was the most excited other than Shui Yaoyao. He looked at Feng Yi who was walking towards him, and his eyes were red. He took the honor from his brother's hands, and his back was straight. Feng Yi had so many things to say to his brother, but in the end, this manager, who could make all esports players famous, just walked past him and went to the next player. Because Feng Yi was very clear that this honor should be given to Feng Shang cleanly. Even if it was mentioned in the esports circle one day, no one would say, look, he became famous because of his brother. In fact, he is just a stutterer. The person who chased after his pants when he was young had grown up. At this moment, Feng Yi finally believed that even without his protection, his brother could still stand out from the crowd. Fu Jiao was of course the last speaker. Under the bright lights, the youngster held the glittering gold trophy in his hand and glanced at the other three standing beside him. Facing the camera, he suddenly smiled. I want to give this trophy to my mother. Because of me, she has broken her heart too many times. Because of her poor background, she was ridiculed by others. She moved from city to city to negotiate with sponsors. Finally, she managed to preserve the company's qualifications and form a team. That's why we can come here. So I want to give this trophy to her mother. No problem. The three of them shouted loudly and looked in He Honghua's direction. He Honghua covered her mouth and cried tears of joy. Fu Jiao's eyes darkened, and her silver hair fell down. Finally, we used to be looked down upon, and even when we worked hard, we were questioned. He wanted to use this as a general to tell some people. My team members have never been out of breath. In an instant, thunderous applause rang out. Yin Wu Yao, Shui Yao Yao, and Feng Shang looked at each other, walked together, and lifted Fu Jiao up. If there really was a king in this world, in that case, we will be your loyal subjects. Chapter 236. Supreme Alliance's new team was formed. There were a total of 11 people. Qin Mo stood in the middle, the team members lined up in a row. Every one of them was in their uniform, looking indescribably handsome. That surging aura was just like the slam dunk that had swept the world of anime and manga back then. It swept over and ignited people's hearts. Such a scene was broadcasted on all major online platforms at the same time. Many fangirls couldn't help but want to play hero again after watching it. At this time, in the lounge of the business reception, Fu Zhongyi's arm was held by a well-maintained woman. She was wearing a woolen coat that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Her makeup was exquisite, and her other hand was holding a wine glass filled with red wine. She was smugly clinking glasses with the investor. Director Li, you really have a good eye for choosing our Fu's battle team. There wasn't a man who didn't like to be praised by a beauty, especially Mr. Li. He laughed and waved his hand. Speaking of foresight, Mr. Su's foresight is still the best. You've poached so many worthy members. After this selection contest, once the name of the Fu's battle team spreads, our good days will come. President Fu, I'm so envious that you have such a good wife. Fu Zhongyi glanced at Su Mei, who was standing beside him. His expression was one of superiority. CEO Li was never stingy with his praises for his business partners. And young master, you're really good at gaming. Honestly, there was a period of time where I really believed He Honghua, thinking that Spade was there. That was really hilarious. I know, right? Su Mei pretended to sigh regretfully. It's really hard to say about big sister Honghua. Sometimes, I don't want to make things difficult for everyone. Zhongyi understands me but she just can't get along with me. Fu Zhongyi sneered. That shrew, why do you care about her? Actually, I don't care about my status. Su Mei looked at Fu Zhongyi, and her voice gradually became softer. Her eyes turned red. But Ximing is so outstanding, and he has always been criticized by others since he was young. Just because he is 7 months behind Ximing, I really can't bear to. Hearing that, Fu Zhongyi's heart softened. He reached out and pulled his wife into his arms, gently patting her. After this selection contest, let's see if Honghua still has the capital to delay the divorce. You don't have to worry about the others. My Fu family only recognizes our Shiming family. As for the others, it's fine even if we don't want that kind of trash. Mr. Li was not interested in listening to this kind of family infighting. He was a businessman, and what he cared most about was the interests of businessmen. Today is a good day. Don't mention unhappy things. The Qin Group's competition should be over by now. President Li said and smiled again. President Fu, shall we go down now? I believe that many of our friends from the media are waiting to interview us, especially some advertisers. After watching this year's selection contest, they will definitely keep coming. Mr. Li is right. Sume knew what kind of person she was. She definitely knew that in this circle, she had to take advantage of the situation. She said coquettishly, "Hubby, hurry up and smile. Think about how Shiming made us proud, so that we can accept the interview later." Chapter 237. In the center of the cocktail party, a red carpet was spread all over the floor, showing off the nobility. There were indeed many people there, all of whom were business celebrities in Jiang City. In the magnificently decorated hall, everyone was holding a glass of wine, talking about something with amazement on their faces, and the words "selection contest" could be vaguely heard. Sume walked down the spiral staircase holding Fu Zhongyi's arm. When she saw the scene, her thin lips curved into a smile. Her prediction was right. As long as he had the identity of Spade Z, her son would be famous. With this certainty, Sume walked down the stairs quite confidently. The waiters in suits were still busily shuttling among the crowd. When people saw Fu Zhongyi and Sume coming down, the voices of conversation stopped abruptly. After all, they were all people in the business world, and they had been here for a long time. Naturally, they wouldn't show their expressions, so they naturally changed the topic. However, their eyes would involuntarily look at Fu Zhongyi's side. Being stared at like that, Sume's attitude became even higher. She turned sideways to let the waiters pour her wine, and then she blended into the crowd. Boss Li was also smiling happily, thinking that in less than a minute, someone would definitely come over to talk to them. The three of them looked at each other with confidence. Sume even pretended to raise her glass and take a sip of red wine, with a big smile on her face. Who knew? 1 minute passed. 2 minutes passed. 3 minutes passed. Still no one came over. There were reporters taking pictures of them. But the feeling of taking pictures like that was very strange, not like a formal shooting. It was a little hard to describe. Usually, if someone came to interview them at this time, they wouldn't refuse. Why did they hide? Boss Li frowned, feeling a little awkward, but he couldn't tell what it was. Things didn't develop for a long time, so Sume couldn't help but feel a little anxious. After all, the purpose of attending this cocktail party was to make friends with more advertisers tonight. It couldn't go on like this. Others didn't move, but Sume moved. She held her glass and came to the side of an investor who had been eyeing the esports project recently. "Boss Lu, long time no see." That Boss Lu glanced at her and didn't say anything. Sume continued to smile. "I wonder if you have watched this year's selection contest?" I didn't look. Boss Lu's words were also very artistic. But after seeing the pictures and the moments, I plan to go home and watch the replay. I heard that there is a player called Spade Z who is not bad. When Fu Zhongyi and Sume heard him mention Spade Z, their smiles grew wider. Fu Zhongyi enunciated each word carefully. "My son is untalented, but it is his good fortune to be able to catch Boss Lu's eye." As an investor who had taken drastic measures against Honghua at the last minute, he was even more confused. Spade Z is he Honghua's son? How is this possible? Manager Li said anxiously, "Manager Lu, is the information you got wrong?" He was very, very worried. If his intuition was right, this call from the CEO was definitely related to the young man. "President Qin, tell me, who did you hurt for young Master Jiao?" Qin Mo kept his phone as though no one was around. He fiddled with it and glanced sideways at the youngster sitting not far away. Finally, he was completely by his side. From now on, he should be able to live a little more peacefully. Asterisk 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 it's very important, and I have to write it here. School hunk doesn't allow authorization. Any reprinting, adaptation, or other infringement is my bottom line, and I will go through legal procedures. He was indeed a nouveau riche. Or do you think that Manager Feng's brother is short of money? When Fu Jiao asked this, she glanced at Feng Shang, who was still chattering in front of Feng Yi. Yao Yao shook her head. The entire Jiang city knew that the Feng family was rich. When she was a hacker in the past, there was only one offline person who helped her with the follow-up work and fake her identity. No one else had ever contacted her. He didn't expect that one day, he would be able to fulfill a dream with so many people. Persevering in his beliefs made him so happy. Chapter 247. After hearing Feng Shang's words, everyone in the team was shocked. Especially Lin Feng, who turned his head and looked at Feng Shang with an expression that said, "You're awesome, my brother." Feng Yi had no choice but to pull his brother to the side and pretended to lecture him. How can you have such thoughts? It's obvious that Spade Z is chasing after young Master Qin. Don't talk nonsense, okay? Especially when we're drinking, don't ever mention this to young Master Qin. Young Master Qin is narrow-minded and ruthless. His brother wouldn't even know how he died. Feng Shang was still stuttering, and he said seriously, Wasn't it Almighty Qin who dragged my idol away? Obviously he did. Captain probably dragged him away to teach him a lesson. Lin Feng guessed with certainty. In the future, Captain will probably come up with more rules and regulations for Little Spade, such as not allowing him to do this, not allowing him to do that. Little Spade is so handsome. Why does he like men? It's fine if he likes men, but the one he's chasing is Captain. Sigh, this is no different from seeking death. Do you know how much Captain hates gays? Although he respected other people's sexual orientation, the premise was that this kind of thing didn't happen to him. If anyone dared to touch him, he wouldn't be able to tolerate it. Besides, Captain was so skilled. Little Spade was hopeless. Even if he wanted to steal a kiss, he wouldn't be able to. He would definitely be beaten up by Captain. But don't worry, Little Shang. I like Little Spade so much that I won't let Captain kill him. Plus, as long as Little Spade doesn't act too obviously, Captain will definitely tolerate him a little. After all, the national competition is coming soon, and Supreme Alliance still needs him. The other team members listened and nodded in agreement. Shui Yao Yao stood there and thought of only one question. If His Highness Jiao stole a kiss from young Master Qin, would young Master Qin really beat him up? Or, no, I can't think like that. Shui Yao Yao patted her blushing face, but her eyes were full of little stars. Ever since they knew that Fu Jiao was going to chase after Qin Mo, everyone in the team was on high alert. They were afraid that Fu Jiao would do something that would anger their captain. If that happened, he would kill her directly. Therefore they had a plan to completely isolate these two people. Little Spade, go sit beside Sister Yao Yao. You'll be able to shield her from the alcohol later. Lin Feng lowered his voice and said to Fu Jiao. After saying that, he felt that he was so handsome and smart. How could he be so quick-witted? Fu Jiao took off her jacket with one hand and nodded with a faint smile. She had always been gentle to Shui Yao Yao. But seeing the youngster leave his side, Qin Mo's hand that was holding the wine glass paused for a moment. That pair of indifferent eyes looked up emotionlessly. Chapter 248. Fu Jiao turned her fair and handsome face sideways, her silver hair falling behind her ears. She was still looking at the dishes on the menu with her fingertips, completely unaware that something was wrong. She asked Shui Yao Yao softly, "What do you want to eat? Are there any foods you don't like?" "Nope." Shui Yao Yao immediately shook her head. This time, Qin Mo laughed. Through the layers of lights in the restaurant, His eyes watched this scene. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. When the smoke lingered, the coldness intensified. In fact, the two of them were too far away from Qin Mo to be able to sense his aura. Fu Jiu ordered a lot of things. She said to the waiter who was keeping accounts, "Do you have Budweiser for beer?" "Yes." "Give me 30 bottles first. I want the big ones. If it's not enough, I'll ask you to add more. Then give me some ice." "All right." It was normal for a dozen people to drink 30 bottles of beer, but no one would order ice when ordering beer. Therefore, the waiter couldn't help but take another look at the young man. Fu Jiu turned around and raised her eyebrows. "What? No ice?" "Yes." The waiter's heart skipped a beat and her face immediately turned red. She quickly wrote down the order and walked away shyly. This was not the main point. The main point was that the waiter was a man. The guy was even shy. The members of the Supreme Alliance looked at each other and immediately gave Fu Jiu a thumbs up. "Little Spade, you're really something." Fu Jiu had an epiphany and curled her lips into a smile. "I can't help it." Lin Feng could not hold it in any longer. He turned around and asked Dean Wu Yao, "Peking University, how did you get tricked into joining the team by this brat? How can you tolerate him like this?" Yin Wu Yao raised his head silently, refusing to comment. "Am I not handsome?" Fu Jiu was asking Shui Yao Yao this question, and she didn't forget to show her seductive smile. Even though she knew it was a woman, Shui Yao Yao still felt like she had been electrocuted. She blushed and nodded. "Look." Fu Jiu tore open the chopsticks and put them in her mouth. She looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned his head and grabbed Yun Hu's hand. "I want to beat him up. What should I do? Give me a reason why you want to beat him up." Yun Hu's voice was as deep and steady as he was. Lin Feng was very serious. "He's more handsome than me. As long as it's a man here, which of them isn't more handsome than you?" Yun Hu caressed his head. "Give up on that idea, you can't beat me up." Fu Jiu, who was listening on the side, couldn't help but smile at Shui Yao Yao, as if they had some kind of tacit understanding. This made Qin Mo, who was sitting in the middle, smile even wider. Then, he raised his hand and extinguished the cigarette in his hand in the ashtray beside him. Yun Hu felt his hands turning cold, but he couldn't find a reason. Lin Feng had always been someone who knew how to warm up the crowd. She would have had no dreams and would have lived a mediocre life? She would have been ridiculed by others. Shui Yao Yao couldn't help but tilt her head and clink glasses with Fu Jiu. Fu Jiu didn't know what she was thinking. She chuckled and patted her head with her free hand. "Girls shouldn't drink so much." Yao Yao really wanted to say, "You're a girl too." Chapter 250. Team Flower. Fu Jiu looked at Lin Feng's beautiful face and gave a very pertinent comment. "She really suits you. You're prettier than the whole team combined." Lin Feng's tongue had already started to stiffen. "Have you ever thought about how we feel about the only girl in our family? I think Yao Yao must be very happy to give you the title of Team Flower." Fu Jiu was still smiling, looking very youthful. Shui Yao Yao didn't say anything because His Highness Jiu was the best looking. If he changed back to women's clothing, he would definitely be very stunning. At this moment, she was a little worried. If he became a member of the Supreme Alliance in the future, how long could he hide the fact that His Highness Jiu was a girl? Fu Jiu saw her looking at him, so he turned his head and raised his eyebrows. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Shui Yao Yao just started to speak. Almighty Qin, who was sitting at the far end, was playing with the phone in his hand and walking towards them. Shui Yao Yao felt that this scene was familiar. But before she could remind His Highness Jiu, Almighty Qin leaned over and put one hand on the back of her chair. He smiled faintly and said in a deep and magnetic voice, "Yao Yao, change seats?" Shui Yao Yao paused. Her fingers were a little nervous. However, she was still very sensible. Besides, as a shipper fan of His Highness Jiu and Almighty Qin, she especially liked to see the two of them together. Hence, she gave up her seat without saying anything. Lin Feng was a little confused. Did he drink too much? Why did the captain take the initiative to go over there and sit with Little Spade? Who would have thought that? Qin Mo didn't just sit down, he also pulled the young man very close to him and lowered his voice. What did I tell you? Ha! Fujio blinked and smiled. Yao Yao is a girl, it doesn't count. It's the same for men and women. Qin Mo's voice was very calm. In the team, the members are not allowed to date. If there is a problem, it will affect the performance of the game, so control your claws. Fujio smiled. Brother Mo, you can't do this. What if Yao Yao and I really fall in love in the future? Then I'll break your legs. When Qin Mo said this, his smile was very beautiful. It was enough to make any woman, except for Fujio, fall for him instantly. Other people couldn't hear what they were saying, but looking at their posture, it was enough to make people's jaws drop. Lin Feng rubbed his eyes hard. He felt that he had drunk too much and was hallucinating. What is Captain doing? The rest of the team members had complicated expressions on their faces. They felt that they couldn't see through their captain. Yes, they couldn't see through him at all. Fujio, on the other hand, was already used to it. Brother Mo, we just became teammates, and we will be participating in the National League together in the future. Don't make it so bloody. Breaking your leg won't affect your hand speed. You can still fight. With that, Qin Mo reached out and pulled the youngster up. He said to the team members, I'll send him back. You guys can continue drinking, but don't forget to gather at the top floor of the company tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Everyone will fly to Tokyo for impromptu training. If you're 1 minute late, you'll have to do 10 push-ups. Chapter 251. It was extremely cold outside. It was winter in the north, and it had rained. After walking out, even breathing could produce a thin layer of white mist. Fujio only felt cold, but her left hand was still warm with someone holding it. Qin Mo walked a few steps and found that the young man wasn't wearing a jacket. He narrowed his deep eyes, took off his uniform, and put it on the young man. This was a sign that the danger was over. Fujio touched her belly. I want some hot soup. Qin Mo was so angry that he laughed. You're so disobedient, and you still want so much? As a big brother, shouldn't I give my little brother some rewards? Fujio chuckled. I won the competition and got first place as promised. Secretary Liang came out with these two, and after hearing their conversation, he could only look up at the sky silently. These two were too immersed in their roles. Big brother, little brother. Why did he only see ambiguity? Qin Mo looked behind him first. It was obvious that he didn't want Secretary Liang to follow him anymore. Secretary Liang was in a dilemma. CEO Qin had drunk alcohol, and it was easy for him to get drunk. If he left, something would happen between these two. What if CEO Qin turned gay? But if he didn't leave, he didn't have the guts to stay. In fact, Secretary Liang was thinking too much. Qin Mo simply didn't like people following him, especially with Secretary Liang's dirty eyes. It made him wonder if he had made a mistake in his judgment when he looked at Secretary Liang's workability. After getting rid of the people following him, Qin Mo turned around and looked down at the young man. What do you want to eat? Tell me, or people will think that I'm abusing you. Fujio was definitely a hot pot lover. Qin Mo looked at the time on his watch. Hot pot at this time? That's right, it's not realistic to eat hot pot at 11. Fujio thought about it and looked at a 24-hour convenience store not far away. Let's go there must be food there. Instant noodles are good too, spicy and spicy. In fact, Qin Mo didn't really go to convenience stores like this, but since his little brother wanted to go, he wouldn't say no. Fujio was like a fish in water in a place like this, and she knew all the good food like the back of her hand. Qin Mo sat on a chair prepared for supper customers. He supported his face with one hand and glanced at the young man who was squatting next to him and picking things. His eyes gradually narrowed. The way he picked things didn't seem like he was a newbie. But when did the young master of the Fu family, who had always been squandering money in Western restaurants and nightclubs, come to a convenience store? After Fujio picked out the instant noodles, she looked up and met the man's deep eyes. Her fingers paused for a moment, and the corners of her mouth curved into a smile. But she didn't say anything. She just took the things and went to pay the bill. He started to be on guard. He knew that he couldn't let his guard down when dealing with the Almighty. Experts in criminal psychology could easily analyze a person's behavior. After Fujio paid, She asked the cashier of the convenience store to pour hot water for her. The cashier was so excited that his hands were trembling. People who didn't know better would think that he was poisoning her. Finally, Fujio knew why his fingers were trembling. You're Spadesy, right? I've watched today's match live. Can you let Almighty Qin sign his name here? I'm a Qin fan. Everything was normal here. But the cashier's last sentence was, you and Almighty Qin are really compatible. Chapter 252. That cashier was obviously more excited because of his idol's approach, but he didn't dare to repeat what he had just said. After all, everyone knew that Almighty Qin didn't like to pair up with other people. Qin Mo wasn't that easy to fool. He knocked on the table with his fingers and laughed in a low voice. He said, I heard everything just now, but I don't know the details. What are you afraid of? It's not a big deal. That cashier obviously didn't understand Almighty Qin's two-faced ways. But Fujio, who had suffered a lot, knew. She put down the instant noodles and wanted to give the cashier a secret signal. But Qin Mo didn't give Fujio the chance. He reached out his hand and pulled the young man behind him. He said to the cashier in a domineering and pampering way, Go on. The cashier looked at his idol's action and analyzed it. Based on his understanding of his idol over the years, if Almighty Qin didn't like someone, he wouldn't touch that person's hand. But now, not only did his idol touch it, but he was also flirting with it. So the cashier let go of his worries and became excited. He took out his phone and flipped 2 pages for Qin Mo. This is a picture of Spadesy walking towards Almighty Qin when he won today. Everyone said that Almighty Qin and Spadesy are a good match. A good match. A good match? Qin Mo frowned, turned his handsome face, and looked at the picture on the phone screen with his deep eyes. The silver-haired young man raised his head and put his hand on Qin Mo's hand. His thin lips were still curled up, and he looked quite likable when he was smiling. He was handsome and gentle, not particularly rebellious. It was not easy for someone in puberty to be like this. Qin Mo took another look at the photo and didn't say anything. Instead, he glanced at Fujio and said in a casual tone, When did you start eating instant noodles? Fujio raised her eyebrows and laughed. Actually, I've always liked it. It's just that I used to pretend that I like to eat big meals in front of outsiders. Instant noodles are too strong. Brother Mo, you won't mind, right? Her words were 30% false and 70% true. She had played cops and robbers for so many years, so she knew criminal psychologists very well. She knew the underlying problem behind every question. It wasn't that easy for the Almighty to blow her up. I won't. Qin Mo also knew that he couldn't trust this kind of answer, so he ordered a cup of coffee and returned to his original seat with the youngster. This series of actions made the cashier extremely excited. This was the first time that Almighty Qin had been paired with someone. Almighty Qin didn't refuse, although he frowned just now. But he didn't reject it. Did this mean that Almighty Qin didn't object to becoming a couple with Big Spade? Thinking of this, the cashier's eyes were filled with pink bubbles. Not to mention, when she looked at the two figures sitting together, she felt that there was a chance. Chapter 253. Qin Mo's low and cold voice rang in her ears. Fu Jiu looked up with a smile. Why do you think so, Brother Mo? This is the best view of the entire street. At the crossroads, the building is directly opposite, and the other two sides are very empty. There are no buildings blocking the way. Sitting here, you can have a panoramic view of the movements in all three directions. Generally, high IQ criminals like to blend in with the crowd like you and observe the surroundings as if nothing is happening. This is so that they can avoid being questioned by the police and not be noticed by anyone after they are done with their business. Qin Mo's expression was indifferent, making it hard to tell if he was serious or if he just wanted to chat about this topic. Fu Jiu looked at the steam coming from the instant noodles and put the plastic fork in her mouth. She smiled like an innocent teenager. Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. How could criminals in real life be so smart? If they were, the rate of solving cases wouldn't be so low. After all, I can't even find my lost phone. Fu Jiu smiled and said, Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. Any story that is presented in the form of art comes from real life. Qin Mo looked at Fu Jiu with his deep eyes. So be good next to me and don't let me get hold of any evidence, understand? Fu Jiu felt that the Almighty's good this time was completely different from before. It sounded like he was warning her. To be honest, she couldn't help but suspect that the Almighty let her enter the Supreme Alliance for the national competition and to keep an eye on her. In this case, it was indeed not easy to play dirty tricks. Fu Jiu was a little depressed. Why did she have to be wary of some people even if she was reborn 100 times? If she was unhappy, she would eat some instant noodles to calm herself down. Qin Mo didn't want Fu Jiu to think that he was too controlling as a brother. Even if he was in a good mood when he saw the young man's curled lips, he couldn't go too far. It's not convenient to contact you since you lost your phone. Fly to Tokyo tomorrow, and I'll ask Secretary Liang to choose one for you. Fu Jiu swallowed the noodles in her mouth. I'm just giving an example. I don't lack phones. Where did the Almighty learn to buy something for her whenever he disagreed with her? He must have looked up some strategy again. As if reading the young man's mind, Qin Mo suddenly laughed. Why? Aren't all the overbearing CEOs like this in the books you read? Ouyang is very handsome. Fu Jiu was caught off guard. Fu Jiu almost choked on her cold joke. She couldn't let the Almighty read such nonsense again. It was too toxic to learn and apply. But there was no one else other than the Almighty who could tell cold jokes in such a dignified manner. Fu Jiu tilted her head, and only then did she realize that the man had given her his coat. He was only wearing a thin cashmere sweater, and she couldn't tell if he was cold or not. His slender and fair fingers were holding a cup of coffee. It definitely wouldn't be warm. After all, in this weather, the 24-hour convenience store's heater wouldn't be enough at this hour. Fu Jiu thought for a moment and brought the noodles to Qin Mo's mouth. Qin Mo paused but didn't reject. In any case, the reason would not change. She was afraid that the youth in his rebellious phase would be too sensitive, and she had just warned him. Therefore, when the young man fed him noodles, he didn't avoid it. Chapter 254. As a single dog cashier, he could only watch Almighty Qin turn his head and bite the noodles Big Spade fed him with his light-colored thin lips. His elegant and handsome side profile was revealed. At that moment, snow was falling from the window, and even the street lights seemed to become soft and beautiful. Both of them were extremely handsome, not only Almighty Qin, but also Spade Z, which made the picture look especially good. This was definitely a good match. A good match that couldn't run away. The cashier seemed to be telling everyone what he was feeling right now. So he raised his hand and secretly took a picture of the two of them without disturbing them. He posted it in the CP fans discussion post and added a comment. Almighty Qin and Big Spade came to our convenience store together, and they are eating instant noodles now. So this is the right way to eat instant noodles. It's so cute, and I can't help but share it with everyone. After posting it, the cashier said in his heart that he hoped Almighty Qin and the others wouldn't blame him. This scene was too exciting. As soon as the picture was posted, the whole page exploded. Hey! Noodles! Almighty Qin? Big Spade? No, I want to see it again. Almighty Qin has never eaten anything given to him by anyone. Last time when Coco gave him potato chips, he rejected them. So Almighty Qin absolutely loves my Big Spade. I just want to say that when I see the picture, my wolf blood is boiling. I hope the officials can release the merchandise soon. I want to buy a small album of Big Spade and Almighty Qin getting along. I don't care how much it costs. This is simply fulfilling the CP fans' dream. Don't tell me that Almighty Qin and Big Spade get along like this in private. I just want to say, single dogs are so cute. Please don't mistreat them. I'm going to drink up this bowl of dog food. Is it a guy or a girl who posted this post? Please post more pictures. I think we shouldn't go too far. Almighty Qin might not want to be a CP with Big Spade. It's never bad to keep a low profile. That's right. Then let's just enjoy the CP post in silence and not post it. Otherwise, it won't be good if we get into trouble. These are the thoughts of true love fans. But there are so many people in the world, and we can never predict what the negative side of a matter will be. At this moment, someone who used to like Spade Z narrowed his eyes as he looked at the photo of the couple. She felt like she had been slapped in the face for mistaking Spade Z. Therefore, she felt that Spade Z's method of proving himself on the spot was too pretentious. He had to use this method to embarrass them. Had he ever considered the feelings of his true fans? Thus, he decisively turned from a fan to a hater. At the bottom of the post, he wrote, "You know that Almighty Qin doesn't want to see this kind of post, but you still posted it? Was he delusional? I was puzzled." Chapter 255. There was a rule on the official esports website. Fans could fantasize about who their idols were, but the official esports website was not the place to talk about this. The hottest topic of discussion here was the upcoming National League. Every team was focused on dealing with the situation. Even many of the commentators were focusing on each team's players and giving comments on them one by one. Such a meaningful analysis post was suddenly overshadowed by a CP post. Of course, it would cause dissatisfaction among people who only liked this game. Moreover, the CP post was still trending. Finally, someone couldn't help but speak up. Those who like Spade Z, please don't post here all the time, okay? Especially this kind of CP post. This is the official website of the national team, and there are other fans here. Can't you have some manners? The picture is good, but as a Qin fan, I just want to say that this kind of hype is a bit too much. I hope Spade Z's fans can stop. I won't comment on this matter now, because according to my understanding of Almighty Qin, he won't allow anyone to feed him noodles if he doesn't want to. But posting here is a mistake. Big Spade? Who is it? I've never heard of him. The FC King of Zone C, his skills are really good, but now it seems that his character, that Black used to like Spade Z very simply. She even bought a ticket to the selection contest just to watch Spade Z's game. She didn't expect to be treated like that. Since Spade Z didn't give her face, she had to expose this matter so that people could see what kind of person Spade Z was. The post was posted in the wee hours of the morning. It had to be said that this posting time was very advantageous. The official management wasn't here, and they must be sleeping after work at this late hour. Although the company had technicians on duty, managing the direction of the post was not within the scope of their work. The Supreme Alliance was still celebrating, and no one realized that a premeditated bloody storm was coming quietly. The next day, before the sun rose, Feng Yi received a phone call. Fortunately, he had woken up early that day. The members of the team were going to Tokyo for training, so he naturally had to tag along. Moreover, Feng Shang was going as well, so he was very awake when he picked up his phone. However, when he heard the contents of the call, his brows furrowed deeply. When was the post posted? 2:00 in the morning. Mr. Feng, should we communicate with the official website and apologize first? This post is really bad, especially since Spade Z is still a newcomer. It's not good for him to be so high profile. Mr. Feng, when you have time, let him manage his fans. It will be hard for us to deal with this situation. Chapter 256. When Feng Yi said these words, Feng Shang stood behind him. Initially, when he heard the first part, he was very angry and wanted to grab his brother's phone to say something. Until the end, he chose to quietly close the door and continue to tidy up his brother's luggage. Feng Shang had always thought that his brother was very powerful. But now, the pride in his heart had risen to another level because of Feng Yi's words. He was very glad that he had such an elder brother. Although he was in a high position and had to face a lot of material desires every day, he also had to deal with major advertisers, but he had never changed. What is right? If something were to happen, he would do everything that a manager should do to protect her. Previously, Almighty Qin had mentioned that Feng Yi had played a huge part in the Supreme Alliance's development. He did not understand at the time. Did they think that playing games was just a simple game? After getting to know his idol, after experiencing the esports selection contest, and after hearing the phone call today, he understood. The glory we see, there are too many people behind it, and they have given their all to support it. The storm caused by the post was still brewing. Since the person involved was Qin Mo, Feng Yi immediately changed his flight ticket after hanging up. This meant that he would stay in Jiang City and let the members who needed training head to Tokyo first. After arranging everything, the first number he dialed was Qin Mo. Feng Yi's style had always been efficient. Young Master Qin, there's a post here that you need to take a look at. After saying that, he sent the post over through the link. It had been almost 6 hours since the post was posted. Many people expressed their dissatisfaction. Are you kidding me? This is the National Esports official website, not a place for you to fantasize. Honestly, I used to want to see how good Spade Z was, but now I'm not interested at all. Let me make it clear, Almighty Qin isn't someone who likes to copy couples. If you're trying to make fun of him, please don't bring him along. This post is obviously made by Spade Z's fan. What a pity. Spade Z is a guy. How can someone say that he and Almighty Qin are a couple? Don't they feel disgusted? I won't say anything else. Just this post alone is enough to slander Spade Z for life. I'm speechless. How can this kind of person play esports? Supreme Alliance should consider replacing him. No matter how good his skills are, if he doesn't have a good character, it will obviously lower Supreme Alliance's standards. Greetings to Spade Z's entire family. Bound to the hype. Due to the excessive scolding, some of the netizens' words were not displayed. When Qin Mo saw this, his left hand that was still holding onto the suitcase's handle tightened his fingers, and the suitcase was thrown to the side. Dressed in his uniform, his gaze turned cold. He was like a devil from hell, his entire being filled with bloodlust. Let me handle this. Feng Yi paused. Boss Qin is here? Under normal circumstances, this kind of thing would be handled by the agent. He sent it to CEO Qin so that CEO Qin could find it. After all, he wasn't sure if young Master Qin was willing to be a couple like this. But now. Chapter 257. As an older brother. If he couldn't even provide the most basic protection, then he would be done for as an older brother. During the esports selection contest, he didn't do anything because the youngster wanted to solve the current problem by himself. But it was different this time. Beyond the technical level, he had to tell them who was protecting Fu Jiao. The youngster was indeed cunning, and he hid his thoughts deeply. Up until now, he wasn't completely transparent in front of him. But he actually treated him as a younger brother. The youngster didn't do anything out of line. Yesterday, he just fed him noodles, but he was slandered to this extent. Then he would tell them whether he was willing to be a CP or not. Qin Mo held his phone in his right hand and turned on the computer next to him with his left hand. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yes. After Feng Yi recovered from the shock, he immediately took action. There was no need to think. Young Master Qin even said such words. It could be seen that young Master Qin did acquiesce to the CP issue. Although young Master Qin acquiesced to the CP issue, Feng Yi felt like the sky was raining red. It wasn't easy to see such a scene in his lifetime. After all, young Master Qin said that if he wanted him to play professional league, he should let him appear less in public. In other words, young Master Qin himself wasn't someone who liked being reported by the media. But according to young Master Qin, he was going to mobilize all of his background forces. Spade Z's charm was indeed great. Young Master Qin never used his family background to oppress people easily. When young Master Qin first came out, he was also slandered badly. After all, with young Master Qin's character, he didn't want to communicate with his fans, so people could use it against him. Since there were fans of all ages, their thoughts must be different, so it was hard to control some things. At that time, young Master Qin was still as cold as he was now. When he saw someone slandering him, he didn't care about them and refreshed his ranking. He defeated countless professional players, and until now, he had become an existence that no one could easily shake in the esports scene. Did you just say that there was no more slandering? That was impossible. In the online world, as long as you became a public figure, there would be people who liked you and people who hated you. Even now, there would be people who looked down on young Master Qin's style. But what surprised him was young Master Qin's way of doing things. After all, he had always been indifferent to this kind of thing. He didn't expect that he would solve it so directly. It seemed like this incident had crossed young Master Qin's bottom line. But even Feng Yi didn't know why young Master Qin wanted him to register for Spade Z's official Weibo. Through special means, the official Weibo authentication was usually fast. Moreover, Spade Z was originally part of the Supreme Alliance, so it was even faster to get the authentication from the team. In less than half an hour, Feng Yi settled the matter and handed over the account and password to Qin Mo. However, young Master Qin didn't log into the account. Instead, he said calmly, "Give the official Weibo to Z." "What is my official Weibo account and password?" Feng Yi. Although it was not the time to complain about this, but, Almighty, why did you ask me for the password for your official Weibo account? He had no choice. He knew that young Master Qin hadn't been on Weibo for a year, so he might have forgotten about it. As his manager, he could only send it to the Almighty again. Chapter 258. Once he logged into the official Weibo account, there were basically 10,000 private messages, forwards, and @s. Qin Mo didn't look at these things. Instead, he opened the post and found the picture of the two of them eating noodles together. Then he edited the text and posted the latest news. The noodles are not bad, mainly because the person who fed them is very pleasing to the eye. When Qin Mo posted this, he didn't forget to mention the Spade Z official Weibo that Feng Yi had just registered for Fujio. There weren't many words, but it completely showed his stance. Not only did it show his stance, but it also showed that he didn't reject the speculation of the CP. Instead, he was very willing to be copied. He didn't use any tone, and even his words revealed his unique aloofness. But it was just this one message. It directly blasted all the Supreme Alliance members awake. What the F***CK? What's going on? Captain, no wonder you called Little Spade out alone yesterday. So you wanted Little Spade to treat you to instant noodles. Lin Feng was the first to forward the post. His repost further proved that the reason why the two of them were alone yesterday was because of the captain's initiative. It wasn't like the rumor that Spade Z was trying to create hype. Sorry, our Supreme Alliance is the most tightly knit. Don't even think about taking advantage of the loopholes. After Lin Feng posted, Yunhu immediately followed up. Captain is going crazy because someone important was hurt. Coco and Fatty, who were preparing to register at the southern airport, were next. Although they didn't know what was going on, they had no idea what was happening. Although they didn't know what exactly happened, they had 100% trust in their captain, Boss Qin. Everyone in the Supreme Alliance was reposting Qin Mo's Weibo. Once again, people witnessed the strong and unbreakable cohesion of this young team. In fact, as soon as Qin Mo posted, Weibo exploded. What the F***CK? I also wanted to ask Lin Feng what happened. Almighty Qin actually posted on Weibo. And it was such a warm post. I was so excited that I wanted to run 2 laps. Almighty Qin's side profile is so handsome. I'm drunk again. I didn't expect to see Almighty Qin post on Weibo in my lifetime. As a Qin fan, I can die in peace. But what did Almighty Qin mean by this? Those who only cared about the competition were confused. I know. Please share the drama. Didn't someone on the official side make a CP post? The people who replied scolded Spade Z badly, saying that he was forcing Almighty Qin to copy the CP. They even said that he was sticking to Almighty Qin, but now it seems like that's not the case. Almighty Qin's words, no matter how I look at it, it seems to be saying that my people are not to be touched. Is this what it means? The CP fans also thought that Almighty Qin meant the same thing. But after the post, they knew that if they continued to say that Spade Z and Almighty Qin were a couple, it would definitely arouse the ire of others. Therefore, they did not make a sound at this time. This was all thanks to an organization of true fans. The true fan had always been an executive who knew about the internet. She was a fujoshi, and she was already old. She had long passed the age of chasing idols and playing games. She dealt with business matters every day. When she first saw Spade Z, she simply felt that this youngster was not bad. But ever since she saw him playing and how he protected North of Een Mountain, she had become more and more annoyed. Unknowingly, she took a few more glances at the youngster until the video popped up when she searched for Spade Z. She had completely turned from a passerby into a fan. Chapter 259. Sometimes the older you get, the more you miss your younger self. This true love fan was also from an ordinary family, so she understood the bitterness of being born into an ordinary family. When she was young, she had vowed to be a great person. But when she grew up, she realized that there were too many unsatisfactory things in life. She was splashed with dirty water, and she couldn't complain when she was hurt. She always thought that the wound could only be healed after success. In fact, when did she forget the justice she had been waiting for? A youngster who would say something like that was definitely not someone who would tie someone up to copy the CP. She didn't know why there were still people who couldn't understand such simple logic. But she couldn't force anyone. When the wave of comments came out yesterday, she knew something was going to happen. Spade Z was a newcomer. Without understanding Spade Z, too many fans would turn against him under the instigation. This was the most harmful part of this matter. As far as she was concerned, the person who posted might not really like Spade Z, and might even be trying to blacken him. But she couldn't say such words. Once she said it, it would only make the youngster more blackened. The only way was to hug all the true love fans tightly, especially the CP fans. So as soon as Almighty Qin posted on Weibo, this true love fan sent out the most sincere call in the CP building. If you really like Big Spade, control yourself, because a word of abuse at this time will not only lower our quality, but also bring more hate to Big Spade. Now that Almighty Qin has posted on Weibo, we can only forward it and like it, without any comments, and wait for further official news. Agreed. I'll forward it now. After all, if it wasn't for our imagination, Big Spade wouldn't have been labeled as a hype. I've learned my lesson and will definitely respond to the call of the original poster. I won't say much, just one sentence. I believe in Big Spade. Wait a minute. The group is organizing a siege. I'm a little confused now. Who should I listen to? The true love fan sister was a person with work experience, and after seeing this question, she directly attacked the pros and cons. Is there Big Spade in the group? Or is that group officially authenticated? I don't think so. After reading it, the true fan replied, I can understand how everyone wants to protect Big Spade, but any existence without official certification is blind to a certain extent. In this situation, before Almighty Qin posted on Weibo, Big Spade had already been slandered to death. Now that the situation has finally changed, what we need to do is to support Almighty Qin, not to create unnecessary trouble at this time. I repeat, if you are a true fan, repost Almighty Qin's Weibo with me, and then we will wait for further official news. All right. I believe you. This was a gamble. Chapter 260. The support measures on Weibo were obviously the work of a veteran. So Feng Yi didn't have to worry about public relations. Because no matter how useful public relations was, it couldn't compare to a true fan. The premise was that this true fan had to be rational enough. After this storm, Feng Yi felt that Little Spade would be very popular in the future. Because there were thousands of true fans. But there weren't many true fans who could see the situation clearly and put themselves in their idol's shoes. Just like how it wasn't easy for young Master Qin to have a true fan like him. That's right. Our manager Feng was a fan-turned-manager. When so many people said that Qin Mo only knew how to show off, he believed that the youngster had the capital to be cold. There were too many tricks in esports nowadays. Some people didn't mind buying rotten eggs or lowering their heads to their fans in order to attract fans. But too many people forgot that as long as you could play the game well and didn't do anything that challenged the bottom line of morality, this spirit should be the most important. He still remembered that when he first took young Master Qin in, young Master Qin told him, "I'm in charge of playing the game well, you're in charge of making the team more famous and then breaking into the national finals." For a club that focused on esports, both aspects were indispensable. But what about fans? Don't we need fans? At that time, he even advised young Master Qin, "Believe me, sometimes we don't need to do anything to protect fans." But at that time, young Master Qin only replied, "Everyone who likes esports knows what they like. I'm an esports player, how to play the game well is what I should do. Although protecting fans can indeed make me popular faster, that's not what I want. In this world, there are things that are earned through hard work. In this world, there are things that are earned through hard work." Because of this sentence, he stayed in the Qin group until now, even though young Master Qin was injured that year and Supreme Alliance didn't win the championship. He was also willing to do so. Perhaps it was because he was getting old. Once he saw the storm on the internet, he thought of the past. Or perhaps Little Spade was really similar to young Master Qin in some aspects, which made him feel hot-blooded again. After looking at Weibo, Feng Yi didn't have any misgivings and went straight to the person in charge of esports. Of course, he wouldn't ask for the poster's registration information. It was illegal, and he wouldn't let anyone search for the poster. In fact, from his point of view, this was a typical case of a fan turning anti-fan. What he needed to do now was to find a loophole in the post and force her to apologize and delete the post. That was the best way to protect Little Spade. So Feng Yi asked 3 questions under the post. 1. Are you a fan of Little Spade or an anti-fan? A true fan wouldn't have come to the official platform to create such a post for Little Spade. 2. If you are a fan, why didn't you delete the post when someone mentioned that posting here is disrespectful and will make everyone hate Little Spade even more? 3. Maybe you didn't notice, but after you posted the photo, 10 minutes later, you followed the thread on the 73rd floor and speculated whether Little Spade was using Almighty Qin to create hype. This kind of behavior clearly showed that you weren't a fan. Chapter 261. Such a strong statement. It directly shocked all the onlookers. Then something even more shocking came out. It was Qin Mo's second Weibo post. That's right. Almighty Qin, who was over 100 years old, actually posted 2 Weibo posts in one day. If we regard the first rule as protecting one's own shortcomings, then the second rule comes straight to the point. Anyone who slandered Spade Z will be held responsible. Instantly, his official Weibo was blown up. That true fan thought it would take a few days of hard work to completely reverse the current situation. But now young Master Qin said this. He was clearly telling everyone, "I'll beat whoever plays with Spade Z." This time, the CP fans couldn't bear it anymore. The whole screen was flooded with comments. "I just want to say that I want to see the picture of my big spade feeding Almighty Qin noodles again. Almighty Qin, are you sure you aren't giving us CP fans candy? After yesterday, I'll drink this bowl of dog wolf again." It was nothing at first. But unexpectedly, Almighty Qin replied to one of the comments, "Yes, candy." He admitted it. Almighty Qin admitted it himself. Who would dare to go back on his words? No one. No one would say that Spade Z maliciously kidnapped Almighty Qin to create hype. The post was also dug out. A black-haired CP post. Everyone was confused at first, but now they were awakened by the questions. Plus, Qin Mo's second Weibo post. Both Spade fans and Qin fans began to ask the person who posted to apologize and delete the post. When the national competition was coming, as fans, they only hoped that their idol could fight in perfect condition. It wasn't just the fans of these two teams, even the fans of the other teams felt that justice was owed to Spade Z. At this time, the young man who was the topic of the discussion had just finished packing his luggage. There was no other way. There were too many candies and instant noodles, and there was a nagging housekeeper behind her, which directly affected Fujio's efficiency. Young master, I have to go with you. What if you really want to sleep with Almighty Qin? If I'm here, I can at least stop you. Fujio yawned, and her silver hair curled up. Even if you're here, I can still sleep with Brother Mo if I want to. What's more, it's to Tokyo. Who's paying for the ticket? I'll pay for it. Chen Xiaodong puffed out his chest. I won't spend a single cent. How about it? Fujio picked up her black leather suitcase. It's not much, because I need money for everything. You're a pro player, so you should have this. Chen Xiaodong was about to cry. Moreover, Madam's company has been doing very well these past 2 days, so she doesn't have time to take care of you. She specifically told me to take good care of young master. Fujio chuckled. Stay at home and don't let your imagination run wild. That's the best you can do for me. Young master, you are mocking me. Fujio tidied up her silver hair in front of the mirror and raised her pretty eyebrows. You can still understand what I mean. Not bad. Chen Xiaodong. Just as Fujio pushed away the clingy butler and was about to leave for the airport, her phone rang in her pocket. It was Shui Yao Yao. Fujio put one hand in her pocket and curled up her lips. Yao Yao? I'll be there in a moment. Chapter 262. Weibo. Fujio slept late last night and didn't wake up early either. She started packing her things as soon as she opened her eyes, preparing for the training in her best condition. She didn't even have a Weibo account. How could she be tagged? But hearing Shui Yao Yao's voice, Fujio knew something was up. She took out her new laptop and turned it on with one hand. I'm going to register for Weibo. Shui Yao Yao was confused. Register? No need. Boss Feng has already set up Weibo for us. Everyone's phone number is locked and authenticated, so Your Highness Jiu, you can just log in with your phone number. As for the password, Boss Feng should have already sent it to you. Fujio tilted her head and looked at her phone screen. There is indeed an unread message. I'll hang up first. See you at the airport. Okay. After Shui Yao Yao hung up, she didn't put down her phone immediately. Instead, she paid attention to Weibo on the way to the airport. Fujio held the laptop in one hand and the suitcase in the other. She didn't waste any time getting in the car. After getting in the car, she turned on the internet hotspot on her phone and logged into Weibo. As soon as she logged in, the first thing she saw were countless @s. Fujio put her left hand against the window and opened those @s with her right hand. Ah, such a blood-boiling scene happened so early in the morning. Has Almighty Qin recognized her as his CP? Thanks to Spade Z, at least he made my idol post on Weibo twice in one day. I want to know how Spade Z will respond now. Spade Z must be shy from Almighty Qin's protection. But I still want a Spade Z. Spade Z too. Little Spade, the Almighty is asking you to eat noodles. Keep it ing. I'll at him too. There had never been a situation like this. An esports player's topic actually appeared in the top 10 searches, and it was still gaining popularity without any signs of dying down. Only popular idols could enjoy such treatment. But now, everything proved that Qin Mo and Fujio were undoubtedly popular in the esports circle. There were too many people tagging Fujio. Fujio didn't see Qin Mo tagging her at first, but when she clicked on Almighty Qin's homepage, she saw, nice face, mainly because he looks good. Also, I will hold anyone who slandered Spade Z accountable. These were the 2 Weibo posts. To be honest, Fujio had never been protected like this in both of her lives. His beautiful thin lips unconsciously rose a little, but he was also very clear that there must be a reason for such a phenomenon. Soon she found the cause. After seeing the post, Fujio's eyes darkened, but she didn't hack the person who posted it. Very simply, this kind of person was not worth her trouble here. That person kept saying that she used to like Spade Z, and that she did this because Spade Z's style disappointed her. She apologized for the post, but she would never like Spadesy again.